So open that page, I'll search for my fix, find what I need in the deep dark abyss.
Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of AI Skeptics, in which we interview my mom, Betty O'Neill. Say hi, man.
Hi.
About all of the things that happened in the early internet, and we're going to do this all in 30 minutes. Jake?
I'm so excited for you to be here, Betty. Thank you for joining us. I told Kathy before, this is like if you're in Sunday school class and the Pope comes to visit. This is
Oh, come on,
the
guys.
best it could
I
be.
was just
AI
a fly
Skeptics
on the wall.
Nation. No, you're it. You're it for today, man. I can't wait to hear from you. So as Kathy said, we're just going to cover a little bit of ground here: origins of the internet, your role in it, and then what's happened since then. So I think we can do that in a half hour.
Okay.
Totally. My mom's worried that she won't have enough to fill in 30 minutes. And I was like, Mom, it's going to be fine. And if you run out of things to say, I'll just start saying things that are completely wrong and you can correct me.
I look forward to that segment.
Yeah, that's fun too. So Mom, tell us why the internet was invented.
To communicate, obviously.
I mean, but how was it invented?
How was it invented? Well, they originally set up a very small network, including Bolt, Braddock, and Newman as one node, and UCLA and SRI, part of Stanford. So we had a triangular network. And
hey, Betty, I'm sorry to interrupt you already 10 seconds into your story, but you're saying we, in this description of the early internet. Can you introduce yourself very briefly? So far, we only know that you're Kathy's mom.
Oh, okay. I'm Betty O'Neill. I was similarly educated as Kathy, except I went to MIT and then to Harvard. And then I got a job as a mathematician in academics at the UMass Boston. So this story starts when I had my first sabbatical came up, and I said, what do I want to do? It's 1977. Wow, look at what's happening to computers. I want to go out and learn much more about computers. And so I managed to, I had a friend who was working at BBN. And he said, we have a very interesting systems group at BBN. They, in fact, were important in inventing the ARPANET, which, of course, turned into the internet.
Not of course. We don't know anything.
Okay. Maybe I can get you a position there because I could work for free because on the sabbatical, I got a salary from the university. So I worked for free for the systems group at BBN, which had this history of having helped set up the ARPANET and also inventing email. So that's where this starts. Okay. So
the ARPANET was set up when?
1970.
And that's when they had 3 nodes and
to start with, yes. And then it turned into 5, I think it was sort of the stable. You can get online, you can see the original, very small.
And when you joined a BBN, how many nodes were there?
Oh, many more. I'm not sure, but something like 25 or something.
And who was
including London. When I first joined the group, my boss proudly showed me how we could bring up the system header of London on the computer. This was 1977. It was really rare thing to be able to do. Wow.
And so
that was the network. That was the worldwide network, was on the order of 25 nodes, and you could communicate from one machine to another.
Yes.
And who was using it?
Well, mostly scientists. And of course, the military was paying for it, and so they were very much interested in it. I don't think they were actually actively using it, though, but they did that later.
So ARPA
was DARPA, Defense ARPA.
So it was a Department of Defense contract.
Yes, that's the defense paid for it.
And what were they thinking about when they paid for it? What was it, just a research project, or were they here's what we want to do with this?
I think they knew they needed to communicate quickly and easily. It was a good idea, so they funded it.
So email was kind of part of the plan.
No. It was just the communications level that email was like a hack done at BBN. Like, hey, we can now communicate. Let's do something with it. And
So what do they mean by
Well, what were they figuring
communicating if
out
they didn't mean email?
communicating?
I don't know what it means to communicate without email.
Yeah.
Well, FTP was one of the main tools, and Telnet. They were FTP is the file transfer protocol, so you could that's what I saw, that system header. You could go into FTP and type in a host name like London.uk. Well, we didn't have any dots in it. We just have single names in, and then you would give you a system problem. You'd have to log in to get further, and then when you logged in, you could transfer files.
So it's
all
really
the way to London.
Transferring files, man.
Yeah.
You're transferring instructions for a computer to run a program. That's like what they envisioned communicating, were these instructions.
The instructions, but also it meant that the app could then start transferring a whole file. So you could send a megabyte from Cambridge to London into a file at that end. That was the level of connectivity. And they quickly invented a notion of anonymous FTP, where you didn't need a login at the site, but you only had access to the files that the site put up as meant for everyone. Okay, So I remember logging into the MetroNet and getting the picture of all the hosts in the Boston area. And the connectivity. So I managed to pick that up, because when I joined in 1977, we hadn't gotten much further than that in terms of user friendliness. We had email at that point. So we had email and FTP and Telnet. You could, if you had a login, you could, a proper kind of login, you could Telnet in, which meant that you would get a line-oriented user interface to talk to the system. So then you could do things on that system.
Is that like the Unix command line type stuff?
Yeah, that's that kind of access.
What kind of language did you use when you got in?
Well, just the command language of that system. Like if it's a Unix system, you'd use regular commands. But there weren't very many Unix systems. The Unix had also started at the same time, 1970, but little slightly different history. So mainly the systems you could log into were like TOPS 20 and VAX when VAX came in.
So we're going to skip ahead like 10 years to when I started remembering things.
Okay.
I think it was 1985, I'm guessing. And you had another sabbatical, and you started a company with Dad.
Oh, yes. But that didn't have anything to do with the internet.
It sure did. It was a communication,
it was communications, but it wasn't
with a modem.
Yes.
I mean, as far as I know, okay, tell me why you don't think this has anything to do with the internet, because
you use telephone communication. That was
to connect to the internet.
No, there was no internet connection.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was that bulletin board I was sysopping?
That was just taking phone calls and answering direct connections on telephone lines.
Oh, so like a bulletin board wasn't connected to the internet?
No.
It was just connected to a computer.
I want to pause to recognize a Betty moment that we're having right now, because this happens all the time when I talk to or get the opportunity to work with Betty. It's like you're looking at a space shuttle, and you're like, what about the wing flap? And Betty's like, let me tell you about when we invented the screw. And did you know that this thing is actually not held together by rivets, it's screws. Like, oh, it's not even the internet, like the.
I thought it was an early way of communicating with a modem. Wasn't there a modem involved in your software company?
We could use a modem for different things.
Okay, I didn't know that.
we did use a modem to communicate with computers even before you were born. We had a home terminal in 1969, and so that was really early, even before.
I do remember like a thing that you put the phone in that kind of looked like a sex toy.
Right.
Yeah, that's the acoustic coupler.
Right? It sounds like a sex toy too.
Well, I got to tell you about Ray Tomlinson, because you say I had the early internet. Ray Tomlinson was the most amazing guy. He was at BBN, and he was credited for writing the first email program, which was a hack. It wasn't just something that was funded by the government. And when we're talking about the acoustic modem, he could whistle his login with an acoustic modem. Of course, it was going
Is that like
really slow in those days. But that's the kind of thing you can do.
I'm imagining that sound that we used to hear when you dial up to AOL, where it's like,
yeah, that stuff. Yeah.
Dude, that's why I thought that the bulletin board stuff was internet, because that noise was also true for the.
Yeah, that's the acoustic modem.
Okay, so I'm one of those people. I'm very good at certain things, and other things I'm so bad at it's actually kind of embarrassing. But I'm going to confess something. I don't know the difference between a modem and a router and the internet. I just don't. They're just all the same thing. They're just like, can I please check my email? Like that's what it is. Could you just, for the record, tell us what the difference between those things are? I think I now know that a modem can be used to connect on the phone line to a bulletin board system.
Yeah.
What's a router?
Oh, router is much more sophisticated. It's a packet switcher. It assumes there's a packet switch network like the internet, and it can bring in the packets, figure out which ones belong to it, bring those in, and in a home router situation, it's very important to understand how it relabels every packet so that you can't. It's very hard for an invader to come into a home network. And this is a very tricky thing. But anyway, I don't have time for that. That would be a half-hour lecture. But be assured that a home network with a home network router is very safe and should be always used. You should never put your computer on a direct internet connection that you get from the cable system.
Don't do that. Wait, there's another story you had about, I think, Ray Tomlinson. He's the guy who hacked email. By the way, back in the day, hacks, you just defined a hack as something that wasn't funded by DARPA. but
I shouldn't have said it. What did I say? Did I say it was a hack?
It wasn't directly funded.
Yes, it was not. That's true.
But what is the definition of a hack to you? Because that's a term that I think people have changed a lot.
Yes, it does have a double meaning. For example, hacker.
Mm-hmm.
A hacker could be just a good programmer, or it could be somebody that wants to break into your system. So it has, at least two meanings.
Okay, so Ray Tomlinson was a good programmer.
He was fantastic. He was the one who figured out how to connect the TCP.
Well, see, that's what I wanted. I wanted that story. Because he was like, as you told me once, annoyed that he was known as the email guy because he was much more proud of the TCP.
Yes.
And by the way, I had this plan, just as an aside, to drink every time my mom used an acronym like TCP or FTP, and I'm already out of booze.
You're going to need a box.
I might be just drinking my mom's booze from now on. But could you tell us the FTP story? Or the TCP story?
TCP.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the TCP has to have a protocol, which means it has to figure out how to send these individual packets back and forth to the other end to start up a conversation. That's
conversation between nodes?
Yes, between two people, really, but they're connected on different machines. So between the two machines.
Okay.
So
this could be like BBN to Stanford.
Right. So
it's a way of like saying, hey, let's talk.
Right. And it was very tricky. anyway, he figured that out. And he was such a nerd. I think of myself as a really big nerd, but he was another level up for me. He wouldn't take vacation days by going home. He would just come to work and refuse to go to all the meetings. That was his vacation. And he was willing to take me home because we both lived in Lexington, but I couldn't talk. So I'd have to sit there.
Why would he was just thinking?
What?
He was just thinking, like he didn't want to have any noise in the car?
That's right. He wanted to think. Yeah.
Wow. That must have been an honor to be allowed in the car.
Yes, I was trusted to keep my yap shut,
That's absolutely amazing.
He was
Betty, can you talk a little bit about how email came up even as an idea? Like, it's interesting to me. I'm in this whole conversation, I'm thinking about, well, what's the analogy to today and to today's AI tools? And, we're going to get to that in the last bit of this conversation, but maybe we can get a historical analogy here. Like, how did the hack of email, how did the idea for that emerge? Even the desire to want to send words and messages to each other instead of transferring files and computer programs over this communications network?
Well, I think it's a natural thing for people to want to talk to each other, and this is just a kind of a way of talking. So it's just that he figured out how to do it first. And he was the one who came up with the user at host, because since he wrote the first one, he had to come up with a syntax. So people used to call Mr. @ and he hated that because he thought that was so trivial.
It's like, that's Mr. TCP protocol to you.
Yeah.
I know, right? It's so funny because it makes me think, one time in a previous job, I came across the person who was responsible for the Windows start button that people may have PTSD thinking of. And he was so proud of this that he couldn't shut up about it. Like, he talked about it within the first 30 seconds of meeting him to anybody. And so it's just funny to me, like, what one man's trash is another man's treasure, I guess.
One of my earliest memories of you, Ma, was something went down at BBN. And we had to go to BBN. I guess I was too young to be by myself, so you just carted me in the car, and we went to BBN and then I just remember you getting underneath an enormous computer. Could you guess as to what happened?
Underneath? The only time
I remember seeing your feet sticking out. Like my mom's like an auto mechanic.
Like on the wheeled dolly thing.
Well, I don't think this was different. I was doing some standalone testing on. I had to change a disk pack, so I went and I stopped the computer and went off to do it. And it turned out I'd stopped the wrong computer, and ended up with having to do something under the computer to fix that. But I don't remember what this. I didn't usually have to go under a computer. That was a rare thing.
But I do remember like the East Coast of the internet was down or something. You were somehow on call.
Yeah, so I was working as a systems programmer, so I would be on call and have to go in and fiddle around. But usually I didn't have to crawl under the computer.
Well, just trust me on that detail. Like what were you in charge of?
Well, we had 6 mainframe computers. 3 of them 10X computers. 10X was an operating system written at BBN, but way before I got there. I guess even before the ARPANET thing. So that was interesting that we had that kind of people around. And they're feisty machines. They would sometimes crap out in various ways. So you're on call, you had to figure out what to do. Usually it would just reboot the computer, but sometimes you had to do more than that. And it was funny, you go down there was a computer operator. In the old days, you had a person that didn't really know how to fix the computer, but was tending the computer, and called an operator. And so you go down and when one of the computers is down, and the operator would be on the phone talking to the users. The computer will be up in half an hour. We have now, we're working on it. And I said, how do you know it's going to be half an hour? It could be 2 hours, And oh no, that's what I always say. And we had
the beginnings of customer service in the tech industry. It's like traced all the way back.
It didn't start well, and it hasn't ended well.
Yes. And sometimes we really have to hit the books. We had listings of the operating system in the machine room, so that if you, in the worst case, you'd have to get out one of these huge listings and look and read the code to see what you needed to do. And you wonder, how can you read a listing? This is like a megabyte of code, maybe, How can you find what you want to look at? Well, there were cross-reference listings at the end. This is the old-fashioned way. Before you had editors that could whiz you to the right spot in your code, you had the cross-reference. So you'd know the name of the function you wanted to look at. So you'd look at that symbol, and in the cross-reference, it would tell you the line numbers where that symbol showed up, and then you would flip this huge listing and look at the code. Wow. So
now, Betty, I want to use that anecdote as a transition to the third topic here, which is everything that's happened since the stuff you're describing. And here's how I want to use it. What you just described about cross-referencing symbols in code is a fine example, and I could think of half a dozen more, where your level of familiarity with something that, like, I'm a dilettante with code, like I play around. And then I have a question and I go to you, and you found it's actually that this file is written in UTF-8 instead of UTF-16. And it's the level of the way the characters are encoded. And that's what the problem is. Like, you understand this stuff down to the bit, down to the transistor on the silicone. And you're like the last one. And nobody that I've run into has anything like that level of depth all the way to the bottom. Yet today, with Claude coding tools, we're all spinning up thousands of websites in 25 seconds. It's like we're just jumping right over these decades of expertise that you really, really have. And I'm very worried about it. And I want to know from you, like, how do you view this? How do you view the idiots like me with the magic wands being like, and now I'd like a whole database system and a way to visualize whatever, we just like snap our finger and expect that this is going to
vibe coding.
And what do you think about it?
Well, it can be very powerful, and I'm trying to use it myself to recode my system that I built up, because I doubt that we're going to find somebody to support it the way I wrote it. It's just a huge mess. Well, it's not too bad of a mess, but
I'm sure it's great.
We did have somebody read it, and he passed on it, so I guess it's
yeah.
But it's going to be hard to pass it off. But if I could redo it with vibe coding, I could probably pass it off much easier.
So refactor it, make it easier to maintain.
Yeah. And it's got a clutter of unnecessary shit in it now that could be cleaned up.
That's a technical term. I would be drinking right now if I had any more.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, like, just to back up for a moment, like, one of my earliest memories is my mom holding a box of cards.
Cards?
Yeah, like cards that had holes in them. They were like a computer card, punch cards.
Gosh, BBN was proud. When I first came in 1977, they proudly told me that they didn't even have a card reader. That was
it didn't. Yeah.
Those
Might have been
all my early computer stories are to do with card readers. My mom was she worked with the computers at Rutgers University, and she talks about pushing carts full of the boxes of cards, and like the cards had better be in the correct order, otherwise your program is out of order.
That was it. That was
yeah.
No, well, it was so it wasn't BBN.
Right? No, it wasn't BBN. It's possible that we were just with somebody who had it, and you were telling me about it. But yeah, I mean, it's just it is like, okay. I mean, I'm not going to put words into your mouth, Jake. What do you find scary about Claude in the context of like my mom's actual knowledge? Because I also feel threatened by it. I feel alarmed by it. I feel like my mom actually knows how computers work, and like nobody else does. And it's a little bit scary. Like, obviously people know how to build stuff in Korea. Like, it's not that nobody knows how it works, but it's like we have a whole generation of people who only know how to vibe code, or at least we will. What's scary about that exactly?
What's scary is not knowing if it's wrong and not having a decent way to check. So a much better question to Betty than how do you feel about it is, since you said you've been playing around with vibe coding, how do you gut check the quality of the vibe coded output?
Well, I haven't actually done it yet, so I can't tell you directly, but I think you should try to read the code. You should make sure it's architected right. The big thing about code is to figure out how to build the different modules that work together to do the job. So if you can get a vibe-coded system that has small pieces that all work to, each has their own job, and you should be able to insist on that, and then you can check those more easily than if you just let it code any old way. You end up with something that is truly unfathomable. But luckily, you can ask for. You can complain if your code looks too monolithic with vibe coding. You can complain to Claude, say, "I want it to be more modular. Modularize this," and he'll do it.
And you could also ask it to write documentation.
Yes.
Although a friend of ours who's been doing all of this and talking to us about it, and we love him, but we're not going to name his name, even though we really want him on the podcast.
Maybe he can come on with a witness protection thing.
We could like mix up his voice.
Yeah.
It like the thing is that you could do it all, and it might work great, but like I worry about him. Like it's like, and Jake has said this too. It's like using Claude, it makes you feel really productive, but it takes over your brain. It takes many, many more hours than you would otherwise work. You probably get more done, but our friend just pulled an all-nighter the other night. We got so into it. And like, he's probably getting more done now than he's ever gotten in his life. And I'm really happy for him, but I'm also worried about him.
Yeah. Well, okay. Since I haven't actually done it, I can't tell you if I would have addictive behavior like that.
Well, on the other hand, Ray Tomlinson was.
I do.
Oh, sure.
I mean, in my playing around with it, I've had that experience where the feeling of making something new, seeing it work, that you just want to keep doing it. And of course, the chatbot that you're vibe coding with comes back to you being like, do you want to improve this part next or that part? There's always another improvement you can make, another piece that you can build on. And maybe a chatbot could be instructed to say, take a break and read over what we've done, or just review it or test it, but like, that's not evidently how they're programmed right now. And
it should be like, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. I'll see you in 8 hours. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. In a way, maybe that's just what we're reckoning with, is the always on, always available nature. Like, it might not be specific to coding stuff. It might just be like, when you have someone that's always right in front of your desk saying, "What's the next assignment? What?
It
Give
never
me
gets
something."
tired.
You know?
Yeah.
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 Did you, so like looking back on it, Mom, I mean, I know you were super into it because you really never looked back, as far as I know. Once you got
Nope.
connected to BBN, like you really just became a computer nerd, right? That was the moment.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Did you had any idea what an effect it would have in the world?
The whole computing business?
Yeah, like the internet.
Oh, I'm not that philosophical as a person, I don't think. It seemed to me it was mostly good would come of it because you need to communicate. You need to be able to move data around. And in fact, we all got richer because of it, I think.
I'm not suggesting that it was a bad thing. I'm just suggesting it was an incredibly influential thing. I'm wondering if you had any notion of that.
I don't think so. I didn't see any warning signs. We did have, of course, various scary things happen, like the internet worm. I was in '88, I think.
Ooh, what's that?
The internet worm of '88. That's like a whole.
I thought Black
like
Monday
was
like Wall Street trading day of '87. It was kind of like, but what was that?
It was called the worm. You can look it up. It was actually a computer scientist who was studying this, and it was, I can't remember the details, but anyway, it could replicate. It would get into your computer and find your compiler and stuff, and start compiling more code to make more copies of itself and send them out on the internet again.
So like a virus.
Yes.
Is that how they came up with the idea of a virus?
No, we'd had other things like that, but this was the first one that really took over. And luckily at BBN, one of our guys realized what was going on faster than most sites did. So what he did was he went around and logged into all our computers and took down or renamed the C compiler, because it was using that to build itself. And so it was stopped dead in our network. But most places the people didn't know what to do, and they got really knocked out.
It kind of reminds me of that like airplane. Remember that airline had a serious bug a couple years ago, and like all the flights were canceled for 3 days or something.
Oh, right.
And it was something like that where they had to take control in a way that this is going back to your point, Jake. Like nobody in particular.
Yeah, what am I worried about?
Knew what the fuck they were doing and how to fix it.
Nobody knows what a C compiler is, or that's the thing we have to unplug to stop this disaster. So that is exactly what I'm worried about.
Yeah, well, I think we were lucky that somebody was attentive, because it happened in just a few minutes, really.
So you're just making me more scared than I thought I would be at the end of this episode. I thought this was.
I know what you're describing. This worm thing is just it's like AI agents, but just 40 years ago. It's the same, same kind of thing happening. So
yes, this kind of thing could happen again. So we do have to be worried about it. You're right that AI could make it much worse.
Well, not just AI, but like the effect that AI has, which is that nobody knows anything anymore. Nobody reads the code. Nobody understands the underlying systems, right? We're just floating on top of it, being
Well, somebody still has to know the systems, like what compilers are.
You would think, but I heard Jack Clark of Anthropic on a podcast recently, and he said over 99.9% of our production code is written by Claude. So obviously they have a process for reviewing it and making sure that they're comfortable with it. But, if 99.9% of the code is written by Claude, I can't imagine it's being read by a human, every line. It's just like the speed at which the overhang grows is nuts.
Also, just like the percentage of people who understand the compiler, like the compiler thing that you mentioned. the percentage of people who working right now as computer nerds who understand that at that level is dwindling. Let's put it that way. It's dwindling.
Dwindling, yes. That's a Jake word, right? Remember reading your code.
Is it?
The dwindler.
Well, thank you, Mom. This is somebody who actually reads code, as you just described. Thank you so much for joining us on the AI Skeptics podcast. It's been really, really great to talk to you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Betty.